All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Old Republic podcast. We hope that everyone had a fantastic May the 4th, aka Star Wars Day, this past week, and hopefully you got to do some fun things. Maybe you got to go out and see Return of the Jedi. Maybe you got to buy some new merchandise, or maybe you got up in the morning, grabbed a cup of coffee, sat down, and watched all 9 episodes of Visions 2, which is exactly what I did myself. I was very excited about this, and yeah, very excited to get on the podcast and talk about it. Cassia, were you able to take in all of Visions Volume 2 on May the 4th, or?
Yeah, I kind of throughout the day some gaps to do some other things. And I also worked on the Bastila audio drama with you. So that
Oh,
was
yeah.
fun.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. It was a day of work and a day of rest, May the 4th. So we've got the Bastila audio drama is coming together nicely. Look for more information about that coming your way soon. But Visions Volume 2 was pretty epic in scale. Very, absolutely loved Visions Volume 1. So definitely we're excited to talk about it, but we don't want to talk about it alone. So we decided to have our friend Joe come onto the podcast to chat about it. Joe, welcome to the Old Republic podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Joe, before we get started, why don't you tell everyone out there a little bit about yourself, kind of, what got you into Star Wars, or what kind of your favorite part of Star Wars is, and what you were getting up to on May the 4th.
Um, I've been in Star Wars as long as I can remember, and it's for me, it's all about the story. I have yet to find a Star Wars story that I don't like for the most part. Even though, when the prequels came out and everybody was hating on those, I even like episode one. So, um, you know, um, for May the 4th, I really, unfortunately, I have a full-time job that I had to do. So I didn't get to do a whole lot. I got about halfway through Vision season 2, but didn't get to see Return of the Jedi like I planned on. But I usually kind of take the whole month of May for Star Wars and just rewatch everything.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good strategy because it gets a little bit overwhelming trying to keep track of everything on May the 4th, especially because we just had Celebration just a couple weeks ago. So all the announcements and stuff and merchandise coming out from that, and then is like a double whammy here getting into May the 4th for sure. So yeah, Visions Volume 2, like I said a couple of times there, it was something that we were definitely looking forward to, especially here at the Old Republic podcast. We both really enjoyed Visions Volume 1. We, covered it last year, so go search that out if you want. But real quickly, let's kind of go around the room here a little bit. Cassia, Visions Volume 1, what were kind of your key takeaways of it? What were you excited about seeing? And after you saw it, what did you like about it? And I guess just go back in time a little bit and tell us about your Visions Volume 1 experience.
None of us really knew what Visions was going to be, and I was kind of like, let me guess, they're gonna like do animated portions of like episode 4 because they are. And then it ended up just being like lots of different anime studios.
I mean, that also would have been pretty cool, to be fair, but
It would have been cool, but maybe a little repetitive, you know? And
okay.
I think what we got was a whole lot more creative and maybe, I don't know, like I think Visions could inspire people just as much as, like Star Wars did when it came out, you know?
Hmm.
And it was kind of nice just to see like all of the different anime studios covering Star Wars in a different way than we've seen a lot before, you know? And it was nice to kind of see Star Wars kind of acknowledge the debt I think that Japanese culture and Akira Kurosawa films and other Japanese films gave to Star Wars.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely harkened back to some of those kind of original themes that you saw, in George Lucas's storytelling and things like that. And yeah, for me, Visions Volume 1 was something I was definitely looking forward to. It was an interesting take on kind of this galaxy that you love, in a format, to be honest, that I'm not super familiar with. I've not really ever gotten into like Japanese animation really too much myself. So I was kind of a newbie in that stance, but I really liked the doors that it was able to open and kind of the studios and kind of their dedication to wanting to tell these stories and what was giving them inspiration. Joe, what about you? Visions Volume 1, was it something you were looking forward to? Were you familiar with like these anime studios, or what was your experience like with Visions the first season?
I wasn't familiar with the studios themselves, but I was definitely familiar with the art style. I have been an anime fan for a while too, so the art style and the storytelling style I was familiar with, but the expectation of the episodes was awesome. Like you guys said, not knowing what to expect or what it was going to be, but to be able to see somebody take a already created universe and put their point of view on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that it took down the boundaries of what a Star Wars story needed to be, right? It had kind of the same themes and emotions and things, but it didn't have to really kind of play in that sandbox. It could spread its wings a little bit, and I found that very interesting for myself, and I think you did too, Cassia. As people who really love stories and telling stories and engaging with stories, it was interesting to see different viewpoints and different takeaways on things like what the Force meant and what it could accomplish, and those themes of found family and stuff like that we got in Visions Volume 1. So we had that. It was great. They announced that we're going to get Visions Volume 2. It's coming. We knew. They kind of teased out a little bit of the studios that were going to be coming with the Visions Volume 2, and it was going to be a little bit of a different take, right? We still had a Japanese studio doing one, but they were going to be from animation studios around the world. So it's going to have a little bit of a different taste. So, Cassia, let's start with you. What were you kind of looking forward to or excited about with Visions Volume 2? Or were you just hoping for more good stories? Or what were you looking forward to when you sat down to watch it last week?
I was excited for the Visions Volume 2. I didn't really keep up like the news about Visions. Like if I had listened to Celebration or like just like Googled it, I probably would have figured it out. But I think it's funny because I was like, you know what would be awesome if they would do like if Cartoon Saloon like did a Visions episode, and then you're like, Cassia, they announced that at Celebration, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, cool. Well, I guess that's good that it's coming, So, it was nice to see like that the emphasis is kind of like on the whole world. They kind of opened it like, harkening back to what inspired George Lucas, and then we get to kind of see animation from like, like Ireland, France, India, Japan, all over the world. So I like that emphasis.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your way of doing it was better than mine because I knew that Cartoon Saloon was doing one for a long time. I was very excited about it. I love kind of their Book of Kells trilogy that they did. So I knew about it for a long time. So I was excited about it forever. You only got to be excited about it for like 2 weeks, but maybe that's it's better like on the heart and stuff. You don't have to think about it too much. But Joe,
Yeah.
what do you think? What do you think? Volume 2 was coming out. Did you keep up on it? Were you excited about it? Did you watch the celebration panel about it, or what were your thoughts, I guess, for Visions Volume 2? Looking for more of the same, looking for something different? What did you think?
Mixture of both, a little bit of the same, a little bit of something different. I wish I had time to watch the celebration stuff. I really just caught the highlights for the things that interested me. But yeah, definitely looking forward to more stories from Vision 2. Looking forward to new art styles to appreciate new stories. I'm all about stories. I love stories.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And we got some really good stories here from Visions Volume 2. So why don't we do this? We're not going to go kind of like super in depth with each of these episodes. It just came out last week, so people might be, watching, one or two a day. So, but I do want to talk a little bit about each of these, hit on the studio that made them, and we can talk a little bit about what we liked about them, the art style, kind of stuff like that. So episode 1, you turn on Visions Volume 2, you're going to get hit with Sith by El Guiri Studios. And according to IMDb, a former Sith apprentice leading a peaceful but isolated life is confronted by the past when her old master tracks her down. So Cassia, you turn on Visions Volume 2, you press play, Sith comes up. What'd you think?
It was an interesting title, and I didn't realize that the person, I thought they were just an artist who was a Force user, but then you kind of realize like they used to be a Sith. Um, but I love the painterly CGI because it was kind of an aesthetic that informed the lead character and the story. And um, yeah, vision stories, I think like sometimes like understand and capture what Star Wars is better than some canon Star Wars stories. So it was a good first parter.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned the art style, and um it is very interesting. It has kind of this high contrast, and it is very painterly. As you mentioned, Cassia. I really liked you hit play and you turn this on, and it's just that little droid ball just rolling around. And I'm like, is this going to be this droid rolling around for 15 minutes? Because sign me up for that, because that's amazing. I
I
love
love
that.
asteroids, yeah.
It harkened back to that kind of opening little bit there of Andor when B2's just rolling down the road with his little bop going on. That was kind of the same vibes I got there from him. And then having a coffee just like me, I was like, hey, I'm starting my day off just like the Sith. So, Joe, what do you think? The Sith here from El Guiri Studios. What did you think about this one? Any thoughts or any comments on the art style here?
My first thought about the art style was cyberpunk mixed with graffiti artist.
Hmm.
Maybe like a watercolor graffiti artist, almost like a graffiti art that's been out in the rain too long. Very, very unique, and I loved it. Especially there's that, I don't want to get too spoilery, but there's that one scene where she's kind of painting the bubbles and they start to turn black, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Definitely kind of reminded me of things like, did you ever see that movie Idle Hands, where there's like a darkness within that's taking over a part of you?
Yeah, for sure. I loved kind of that. You'd have like the paint droplets like coming up, and she'd be seeing them, you know, kind of all colorful, and then they would turn to black, and you really were kind of interested, right? This one did a really good job, I think, of getting you on the hook for who this character was, and what she was doing, what she was trying to paint, and what she was seeing. And then you get the pretty amazing looking Sith bad guy there in this one that you'd seen in the trailers. So that's where that's coming into the story. I really loved the kind of like motorcycle, like it was like it's kind of like the Darth Maul, General Grievous kind of like motorcycle wheel kind of thing. I thought that looked really great, and kind of the way that utilized that there. But yeah, I think that the Sith was a really great kind of kicking off point. It was a little bit more um, higher contrast, and a little, I guess, darker tone, maybe, kind of similar to what we got last year with the first episode of the Duel. So, yeah, had kind of those same vibes, and I was digging it. I love the Sith, for sure. What do we got next? We are going to one we hinted at, Cassia. That is Cartoon Saloon's Screecher's Reach. That is the second one out here. Let's see what IMDb has to say about Screecher's Reach. A young girl seeking reprieve from her days in a rural workhouse discovers a legendary haunted cave with her friends. The cave's dark pool will change the trajectory of her life forever. So we got a ghost story in Star Wars. Cassia, what'd you think about Cartoon Saloon here, bringing us Screecher's Reach?
Um, it's hilarious because I think I told you this, but I used to think it was Cartoon Salon, and I'm like, oh, that's a cool name. But then I'm like, oh, they're Cartoon Saloon. It's been a rhyme this whole time. So, I'm just
Well done,
learning
well done, well done.
even yeah,
That's right.
but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Cartoon Saloon. Have a couple of Oscar nominations for Best Pictures. So yeah, I love their stories. I love kind of this Irish folklore that they dig into, and definitely brought that here with Screecher's Reach.
Yeah. And there's this like I think I kind of forced Brian to like Joseph Campbell, but I think like one of the things that kind of brought us together is Joseph Campbell, and there's that apocryphal quote that he didn't say, but like it kind of summarizes like a lot of his sayings. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. And there's lots of caves in Star Wars. Like it kind of evoked the concept of the Dark Side Cave on Dagobah and even on Ahch-To, and
Mm-hmm.
many other mythic stories in our world. And I liked how it was horror and like kind of a ghost story. But what did you guys like most about this? Because I think I liked that I was kind of confused by this story because I was like, I thought they were trying to go the traditional good route. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, defeating, like killing the ghost is not the way, like, forward to like progress on the good hero's journey, you know? But then, like, I saw that, like, the story was meant to follow through on the dark side path while kind of like
Mm-hmm.
on the
Mm-hmm.
surface, like appearing to be good. And I was like, this is a genius story. Like, they knocked it out of the park. What did you guys think?
Well, touching on the hero's journey, I mean, nothing really says that that has to be a good hero. It could also be construed as a villain's journey. So the dark side aspect of this story still fulfills the hero's journey aspect, I think, just in a different point of view.
That's true.
I really love that little kid that was all like, I don't want to see the ghost. Oh, I saw the ghost, you know?
Yeah, same.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like the ghost was really a good representation of the dark side sort of unleashed, like the absolute worst the dark side could be.
Hmm. Yeah, it definitely had kind of the ghost had kind of the supernatural feeling to it, right? It was more of like a traditional like I guess ghost that you would get out of sort of like fairy tale story there. But yeah, obviously we've sung the praises here of Cartoon Saloon. This was one that I liked a lot. I really liked kind of the characters here and the kids and kind of how playful it was at the beginning, and then it turns into this very somber tale of of the journey of this young girl. And you'd mentioned that it kind of goes down this dark side path, and it does, right, in a way. Like, you definitely feel like that's the way that it went, but I guess it kind of does cut, so you're left kind of filling in those blanks with your own mind, thinking the way that it would have went. And but yeah, you definitely get kind of some more it leaves it up to interpretation there for sure. But yeah, I too definitely got kind of taking the path of this dark side vibes, and claiming the lightsaber and things like that. But the story was great. We're all for fairy tales here on the Old Republic podcast, and that is exactly what this was. So definitely need to see some more Star Wars fairy tales for sure. Let's go ahead and take a look at episode 3. That is In the Stars by Punk Robot from Chile. IMDb says that two sisters, the last of their kind, who live in hiding on their ravaged land, squabble about how to survive with the Empire encroaching. On a water run, the sisters must fight back when they are discovered. Cassia, it leaves out the very important fact that there is cave paintings in this. What'd you think about In the Stars?
You, I mean, this kind of just shows like how well you know me. Like, you're like, one of the episodes has emotional cave paintings. I'm like, what? Like, I'm gonna watch all of them. Uh, but yeah, In the Stars, it's a beautiful title. I like how it started with a star. Um, I'm like, oh, helpful sisters, like they kind of like don't get along, but they love each other. And I'm like, oh, that's cute. And then um I think like Star Wars against industrialization is the best Star Wars. And I mean, like, unfortunately, this is something that happens in our world, like uh indigenous civilizations like can get colonized, and the environment it takes a heavy toll on the environment and the people. And it's something that uh, we kind of see like in the Star Wars world with the Tuscans, and we also covered Watermen, which kind of covered that as well. So
Mhm.
I like that the overall message was hope, and like at the end you're able to kind of see like the hands like kind of like they shoot the paint, the chalk through the flute, and like you kind of don't even know like whose hands they are, but it's their people together, you know. So I liked
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a really beautiful tale. And yeah, I sent you that message pretty much straight away. I was like, oh, there's cave paintings. You're gonna love it. So, Joe, what did you think about In the Stars here?
I thought it was awesome. I think it's funny actually. One of you mentioned hope, Cassia. One of my notes is actually this is a great story of hope. Um, I just I feel like most Star Wars stories, I think Dave Filoni even said it, when he was discussing the Clone Wars with George Lucas, Star Wars is about hope. So anytime a story centers around that, it's usually a good story for me. The art style is absolutely amazing. The younger sister kind of reminds me of that little kid in the Iron Man helmet facing down the bad guys in Spider-Man, just kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, no, I don't
Mm-hmm.
care how small I am. I can take you on.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I love kind of the allusion to the Force there at the beginning, and obviously get the cave painting and all of that. And I really love kind of um the making mention of that everyone who had fallen since the Empire had come in and taken over the planet basically went to the stars, and then you get the symbolism of once that factory is destroyed, of kind of that smog parting and they get to be kind of reunited with their people. I thought was really really beautiful. Spoiler warning if you haven't watched In the Stars yet, because I just wanted to say this because I thought it was super epic. The girls are there, they're facing down that ATST, and you totally think that they're going to start pulling it apart, but no, they bring the whole freaking place down. It's amazing. So, yeah, so that is In the Stars. Another really great one there from Punk Robot again. And then we're getting into let's see, I Am Your Mother by Aardman Studios. This was one that had a lot of buzz around it because obviously that's the studio that does Wallace and Gromit. So I think a lot of people were interested to see that. I think they might have screened it at Celebration. I'm not 100% sure on that, but let's see what IMDb has to say about this one. A young pilot, Annie, who is embarrassed by her sweet but clingy mum, must team up with her for a madcap family race at the academy. Along the way, their relationship is tested by the elements, their old ship, other races, and each other. I Am Your Mother, Cassia. What did you think about this? We don't get a lot of mother-daughter stuff in Star Wars, so this was a refreshing take, I think.
Yeah. I Am Your Mother, it evokes kind of that mythic like I am your father, and it's just nice to kind of see other types of stories, even if like this one isn't canon and it's humorous, like I don't care. It's just nice to see it, you know. And I also want a droid that's basically a dog, you know.
Mm. Hmm.
For yeah. And it was just a fun, humorous tale, and you get to see like different Star Wars families compete in the evil, you know, quote unquote evil family. It's kind of funny because like you see like the daughter, I think it's the Van, I was gonna say Van Tusselmans, but I think it's Van Rugelmans. I'm probably getting that wrong. Sorry, super fans out
It's
there, but
it's the Van Reeples, I think.
Van Riepels. Okay. The girl and the mom, like they have the same hair, the same mole, and it's kind of like the vibe I got is like that the Van Riepel daughter is kind of like just kind of told what to do and does it, but I think like um Annie's mom might be embarrassing, but I think she wants the best for her and like lets her be herself and like lets her go to flight school, and it was just a funny, touching story. And I totally forgot that Dennis Lawson was in episode 9, like kind of just in a brief cameo. And I was
Mm.
kind of like,
Hmm.
this is kind of funny that Wedge Antilles appears in this, like played by Dennis Lawson, and he didn't appear in the sequel trilogy, but I forgot that he appeared in Rise of Skywalker.
He had to be in this one so we could get Wedge Antilles merch, which was maybe the funniest bit of that, I thought. But Joe, what did you think here about I Am Your Mother?
Well, this shows you how little I pay attention to the actual studios that does this art because my first note on this one was this looks like Wallace and Gromit.
With good reason.
Right. Um, but yeah, it was a really fun story. It is definitely one of the ones that you don't see very often, so it's kind of a breath of fresh air. And I love how even in these little Star Wars stories, they always, a lot of people seem to do throwbacks to other things. Like I don't know if you guys caught the one of the ships that was in that race was the ship that they pilot in the Jedi Fallen Order video game,
Mm-hmm.
or at least the same style of ship anyway. So little things like that, like the previous episode with the cave paintings, that kind of harkens back to the Clone Wars miniseries where Anakin goes through his Jedi trials, and they got
Oh
those
yeah.
cave paintings in there in one of those episodes.
Ooh.
So yeah, yeah, just a really really fun episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good call there. That Clone Wars miniseries. I'll have to go back and revisit that one. But yeah, this was amazing. I Am Your Mother. I really loved it. Just from the story that it told. Like I said, there's not a lot of mother-daughter relationship examination in Star Wars, so it was kind of neat to see that. It was kind of very emotional and touching as you got to the end. But there were so many. I'm gonna have to watch this like 100 times because there are so many like little like Easter eggs and little like insider jokes in this thing. There was like a
Hmm.
plushy Max Rebo on her bed, I think, in the
I
um
missed it at first, but I'm like, yeah, it's there.
it's there, it's there, it's there. Yeah, and Joe, you mentioned the one ship kind of looks like the Mantis there from Jedi Fallen Order. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff in this, and like I said, I loved Wedge was there, and you could go get your Wedge Antilles merchandise from the merch stand, and yeah, this was just a really fun one with a really good kind of story and you know I guess kind of a lesson I guess to teach, which I thought was nice from something I guess that should be ideally aimed at children. So very good there. What do we got next here? We've got from South Korea. We've got Journey to the Dark Head. This is from a Studio Mir. Company, I guess, Studio Mir. Cassia, Journey to the Dark Head. It says a hopeful mechanic and disillusioned young Jedi team up for a risky and unlikely quest to turn the tide of the galactic war, but dark forces tail them. Journey to the Dark Head. What did you think about this one? Very, very different from from Aardman Studios' I Am Your Mother for sure.
Yeah, it's a tonal shift for sure, but this kind of got me thinking of season one of Visions because I was kind of like, oh, like so many of those stories, like some of them could have had continuations, like the Eighth Jedi. That would have been cool. And like this is one I would love to like see a full movie of and like uh or at least have a sequel to one day. Like I don't think it'll happen, but I guess that's the cool thing about like imagination. It gets your mind going. But
Hmm.
I thought this was five-star animation. Like some of the landscape and nature shots, like I want them framed on my wall. And then kind of like in a different way, like we kind of got some really cool prequel imagery inspired stuff.
Hmm.
Like the Council Chamber of Dreams. I'm like, oh wow, this is so cool. Uh, and it's kind of cool just to kind of see them go on a mission. And that's kind of like what Star Wars is about. It's about the upcoming generation proving themselves. And like when kind of like the Sith character and the Jedi character were fighting, I was like, it's interesting because we're seeing so much blue and red. It's kind of like it's almost in balance, like these two heads facing each other, and then you kind of see the blue and red mixing, and like, oh, it's a balance, you know?
Hmm.
And we kind of see like that's one thing like about Star Wars, like that I hate but also love. Like there will never be like a final like balance of the force. Like you always kind of have to like light and dark will always square off. And sometimes it feels like the galaxy's doomed to just kind of repeat the same patterns. And that bums me out that like a fictional galaxy can never, get its shiz together, but
Sure.
uh but I love the quote like that he says nothing is fixed. Light and dark will always coexist. And if nothing is set in stone, that means there will always be hope. And I guess fiction is the lie that enables us to see the truth. And probably shoddily, summarizing a quote by some famous person that I should know off the top of my head, but um that's a quote that like enabled me to kind of like see like stories and my life uh in a different way. Not that my life is a grand story, but like there's always going to be hard times.
Mhm.
Um but that's just the fact of life. Is like light and dark will always coexist, but there's always hope.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, very well said there. That definitely is kind of one of the resounding themes in Journey to the Dark Head. But Joe, what were your thoughts of this one, Journey to the Dark Head?
Very similar, the themes of light and dark will um, always be around, and there really is no. I think that's kind of what the Jedi character in this story kind of realizes at the end, that the Force is in balance all the time, and uh, that's what he was kind of on his mission to learn, even though he maybe didn't realize in the beginning that there's light, there's dark, everybody's got a bit of both, and it's just walking the line between the two. Um, I also I know in a lot of these stories they don't really go deep into like the timeline where they might fit within the canon, which I like.
Mhm.
But this one to me feels really kind of pre-Rule of Two. I know they mention a Galactic War, which kind of makes you think it's more, Empire era, but it really feels like pre-Rule of Two, um,
Mhm.
for fans of the books and the whole Darth Bane trilogy. Um, and it's weird to me that a lot of these Sith, especially from earlier times, all seem so intent on converting Jedi beyond their will and forcing them towards the dark side. And I understand, they want that control, but I would always be wary of someone that was forced to do something, even a Jedi.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point that they do kind of seem to, yeah, want to, convert these Jedi to the dark side and things like that. And you mentioned kind of, pre, what we think of as Galactic Civil War, pre-Rule of Two, kind of era, and that was kind of one of the things. If you get into like the Old Republic and stuff, you had, just legions of like fallen Jedi, and stuff like that. So yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. I really like this one. Upon kind of first watching, this one didn't stick out to me quite as much, but the more I've thought about it, the more I really like it in the way that they kind of crafted the story, because you get kind of the rocks at the beginning with the rain coming on and kind of wetting and then evaporates, and you're supposed to kind of see what is meant to be, or kind of see the future in those. So they don't really kind of explain that at front, so you have to kind of figure that out as you go. They talk about the two heads that you don't really see until they get there, so you're kind of flying blind on this stuff. And I really liked kind of this layered storytelling that you get, even in this 15-ish minutes or whatever this one was. Journey of the Dark Head, I thought, had a lot of Mortis vibes to it, with the two heads
Mm.
kind of there, fixed on this ring. You could never be any closer together, just like you had like the moons of Mortis and the Mortis arc and stuff there too. So I really liked this one. This one was really good, and would love to see it continue in some fashion or another. That would be great. What do we got next? Coming from France at Studio La Cachette in The Spy Dancer. The premier dancer at a famous Imperial frequented cabaret uses her unique skill set to spy for the rebellion, but the presence of a mysterious officer threatens to derail her mission. Cassia, what do you think about the Cirque du Soleil act here for Star Wars Visions Volume 2?
Um, at first I was like Sky Dancer, but then I'm just like I just need to focus a little bit more and I'll be able to read, words better. Like it's not Cartoon Saloon, it's not the Sky Dancer, it's the Spy Dancer. But it's funny because when I was watching this, I'm like, it seems French. And then I and then I'm like, oh, that's because it is French.
Good
To
eye, good
me,
eye.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Cirque du Soleil because for me, it kind of evoked the ballet from Revenge of the Sith.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
just kind of like the waving sleeves kind of looked watery, kind of like the Squid Lake from the Mon Calamari opera. But it was interesting because it kind of evoked Casablanca for me. And even though I've never seen Cabaret, I'm like, I think this evokes Cabaret too, and the use of color throughout really just flowed and made it unique. Like at first I was like, oh, it's about a dancing spy. I don't think I'm gonna vibe with this one that well, but surprise, I gave it 5 stars. And even down to like eye color, I'm kind of like, I think this heterochromia is genetic. And then you kind of learn the whole story that's kind of evoked through like him covering up one of his eyes and like his horns were kind of shorn away, but like eh, you kind of feel a little bit of everything, like to the one they say, like to the ones we've lost, like this kind of evoked to me like World War II, like France, like
Mm, hmm
had
hmm
to surrender and kind of had to like put up with a lot of like Nazi occupation, and that kind of comes across like even though it's like rebels and empire, but Star Wars is about family. It's kind of like a soap opera, and you see family reunite and like have the possibility of hope, which I think that's what Star Wars is. Like if I had to describe it in one word, it might be hope.
Yeah, for sure. That is a really good parallel there because that's kind of the same vibe that I got, from kind of the World War II resistance efforts in France there. But before I get into my thoughts, Joe, what do you think about the spy dancer?
See, I was worried about this conversation because, I've never done any kind of podcast before, and I shouldn't have been because you both mentioned Cirque du Soleil. And again, one of my first notes is Cirque du Soleil vibe for this episode. Very colorful, lots of movement. When they get into some of that battling, the using the ribbons, as almost like a weapon, kind of reminded me of Eraserhead from My Hero Academia.
Mm,
Just
hmm
kind of throwing things around, and maybe throwing in a little bit of Assassin's Creed with that almost kind of hidden blade thing going on that she had. Um, and I had to point out because I'm a chubby guy. Did y'all miss the chubby stormtrooper that walked into the room?
I did notice that. Yeah, the first kind of pair of stormtroopers that comes in, one is a little heavier than the other, you could say.
Yeah, it's nice to see a little bit more variety. I know the stormtroopers are supposed to be faceless and kind of, you know, everybody's the same, but once the Empire kind of took over and there wasn't as many clones, everybody wasn't the same, and so it's cool to see a little bit of variety there.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of the body type there, but then as they're going around kind of the theater and they have the stormtroopers have their helmets off, there's different males and females and different ethnicities and stuff there for the stormtroopers as well. So I did like that little detail. So that was a good pick up there, Joe. Um, yeah, this one I liked a lot. I liked it kind of from the very first dance. I did know that this was French and from France. So so when the opening kind of title of the spy dancer comes up and it is in the same font as like the gate at Moulin Rouge for that district in France. I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be interesting, and I really liked that. I mentioned kind of the resistance vibes from World War II, which was what I got a lot, and then it kind of weaves this really kind of heartbreaking kind of family story into it, which to me at least came like as a complete surprise. Like I felt like they did a really good job of kind of masking that reveal, until it happened, and I thought that was really great. I really like this one. It was far different than some of the other stories that we got here, between the first and second seasons, and liked it a lot. So that was the Spy Dancer. Let's see what do we got next. From India and 88 Pictures, we've got The Bandits of Golak. Cassia, what did you think about our train adventure here?
The train section reminded me a lot of Lawrence of Arabia, and The animation seemed pretty similar to the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch, but it was kind of interesting to see an Indian spin on the Star Wars story,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
it got intriguing the further it went into the story.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I definitely agree kind of on that that Clone Wars kind of style. That was the same kind of vibe I got, but I did think that the colors were far more vibrant than what we've
Hmm.
gotten in Clone Wars. I don't know if it was just more of a I don't know, like a neon sign kind of representation of those colors, like that kind of color palette. I don't know for sure, but Joe, what did you think about the Bandits of Golak here?
This is definitely one of my favorite art styles. That top three for sure of all these episodes. Very, very fluid and fun to look at. Um, this is the only episode that I did kind of look up the studio, and I don't remember what caused me to do it, but I found out that this is the same studio that worked on like things like Shrek and Kung Fu Panda and How to Train Your Dragon. So,
Hmm.
um, you know, those kind of influences I could see after the fact a little bit, as far as the art style goes. Um, I did have a slight disagreement with the choice that the younger sister makes at the end. I don't know if she would have made that choice as easily as she seems to.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it happened pretty quick there. I'll give the synopsis here. Fleeing from their village by train and pursued by ferocious Imperial forces, a boy and his force-sensitive younger sister seek refuge in a vibrant and dangerous Daba. Um, yeah, I agree with that, Joe. Like it seemed to kind of happen, I guess abruptly from the stance that it just kind of happened. But I mean, obviously, yeah, the Inquisitor show up and kind of start raising all heck in that little village sanctuary thing there. But yeah, she makes that decision pretty quickly. I mean, I guess you kind of have
Hmm.
to if it's a short story for sure. But I really like the way that this looked. I liked kind of this adventure of these two kids on the train and trying to kind of evade capture on this train all over grabbing a flute and trying to get some candy. I really liked that. Kind of their pilgrimage then to this kind of safe haven for them. I really liked the parting the sea there to reveal the little Jedi logo and passageway down underneath there. I liked that
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Mhm.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I agree. She made that decision pretty quickly, which I guess is kind of an interesting take, as something, that we know of the Jedi to do to kind of, just go out and find force sensitive children and take them into the Jedi Temple. So I guess that happens. So but yeah, this one was great. I really liked the way that it looked, and I liked it had a very, very different vibe than things we've seen in Star Wars before. So I liked that quite a bit. So that was the Bandits of Golak. Got a couple more here. Next
Hmm.
up, from Japan and also the United States, because I guess Lucasfilm pitched in on this one. And Dr. Shitahio is the pit. So, according to IMDb, this says that a fearless young prisoner forced to dig for Kyber by the Empire plans a risky escape for he and his people. So, Cassia, the pit, it's a very pointed tale, I think, at our current modern society. But what did you think about this one?
Yeah, it definitely evokes a lot of our current world. And in my review, I was like, this is a great allegory about how our smartphones are made because I was thinking like sometimes we like to say like life is symbiotic, but sometimes it just feels like exploitative, like
Hmm.
probably like even just like me getting a phone, like to me it just like arrives in the mail, but like maybe like how it was made kind of like evokes, the story of the pit, and it's like how do we change the world that has like such set systems and like such injustice, and there's all these debates like, oh, you have to like do it this way, this way, this way. And like sometimes just like people like saying follow the light Like, some people will be like, that's too simple, it's stupid, it can be taken advantage of, but sometimes it's just good to help people. And I think the pit is an allegory to like the kind of like shows the mirror on like some of the injustice in our world and like how we can maybe solve it. And maybe like it has a very sweet ending, like, but I think that's what stories are meant to do. It's meant to show you like things can get better, and like we should want a better society, and stories kind of help us see the world better. So maybe I'm just rambling, but that's kind of what Star Wars is. It's about following the light, having hope, and you see the character looking kind of at a binary star sunset. And yeah, I like the pit.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely harkens back to kind of the original sort of messaging from Star Wars, right? To fight back and stand up and speak out against oppressors and things like that. So, what do you think about the pit, Joe?
Well, I'm kind of rethinking what I thought actually, because initially this was probably my least favorite episode because I felt like the Empire was almost too cruel. Just
Mm,
by their actions. I didn't think that. I know the Empire is mostly oppressive, but I didn't feel like they would be that super cool to a resource that they could possibly exploit further. But
mm.
thinking about Cassie's comments about the allegory towards our world, it's making me re kind of think that, a little bit. That's kind of the point, is it's in actuality, if this was a real life happening, maybe they wouldn't be that cruel. But the point is to exaggerate a little bit, to point out those differences, to point out those injustices, um, and kind of take a step back and look at things from a different perspective.
Yeah, exactly. This one definitely was all about kind of the perspective and the way that you looked at it, I think. So very well said. Yeah, the pit is I don't know, it was very hard. It was very kind of brutal, like you mentioned, Joe. It was like even it seemed even like cruel beyond, the oppressive empire, right?
Yeah.
To have these people mine so far down and then just leave them there to do whatever until the end of time. Um it had similar kind of vibes to what we just saw in Andor with the prison there too, where you're basically just taking this prison labor and just forcing them to work and work and work without any chance of ever really having any sort of reprieve from that or any freedom from that or paying your penance and rejoining society, so to speak, to like that. And I really liked kind of the messaging there that all of these prisoners had been kind of put in this position to dig for Kyber and stuff. And the Empire was just looking at it as like some precious material. And then when the the guy climbs out of the pit and runs his way into the city and says that, and they kind of pan up to it's basically just like an ornate decoration on one of their buildings. So they'd been doing that just for just for something completely non-substantial to anyone there in the city. And then you get that kind of twist in the pit of your stomach there for a second as everyone starts to leave then, and you don't know if they're going to help them or not, which I think is also kind of a really great kind of parallel to real life there as well, right? I mean, you can ask people to follow the light, but are they going to? And ultimately they do here in the story, spoiler warning. But yeah, that was the pit. It was a really good one. It was one that definitely kind of stuck with me and in my brain there for the rest of the day as I watched through these. And that leaves us with our last one. South Africa's Triggerfish brings us Ayu's song. So this one is an alien child who longs to sing, is raised by her loving but stern father to stay quiet because of the calamitous effect. Calamitous, holy moly, the calamitous effect her voice has on the crystals in the nearby mines. So Ayu's song, Cassia, what did you think about this one?
It was really interesting to start off a short story with opening credits. It's a very Star Wars motif. Um, it was just I think it was like the cutest animation style too. Like I couldn't quite tell if it was CGI or like stop motion, but what I suspect is it's CGI made to look like stop motion.
Hmm.
Um, but it was just kind of the cutest story. Um, and she kind of sees the Kyber crystal without seeing them. They call to her, and she's able to help and turn the red Kyber, and you kind of see it go colorful and then turn to white. Like she purified like all of it, you know. Maybe she upset the local economy, but because they're all changed, you know, but
Hmm.
I guess they still have to mine it, so hopefully their economy's still, in a good way. But yeah, and like the blue sky at the end, it just it evoked, that Star Wars hope. Yeah, like I think I understand Star Wars better after seeing Visions. Like sometimes you have to exit, the canonical story to be able to see what a story is about, maybe. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Um, Joe, what did you think about Ayu's song?
I love the aspect of purifying the kyber crystals. It was something that was touched on in the book Ahsoka. I forget who wrote that. But after Ahsoka left the Jedi Order, and in the book anyway, she kind of left her lightsabers behind, but then rebuilt them. But the only kyber crystals she could find were Sith kyber crystals. And in the story, she purifies those kyber crystals, and that's why her blades are white at the end of it. So seeing that visually in something else was really fun for me. And it was cool, in my opinion anyway. I use voice at the end. To me, is very similar. It's a conduit for the Force, I think. Similar to the way Thor's hammer was a conduit for his thunder and lightning ability in the Avengers movies in the beginning. So it's a focus point, and yeah, a focus point that isn't necessarily focused can have catastrophic effects. But if you learn how to use it properly, now you get this whole pure, absolutely beautiful reaction from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Yeah, that was kind of my big takeaway from this episode was that you're seeing kind of that different interpretation of the Force there and kind of the volatility of it. If any of the listeners out there, if you've read like any of the High Republic stuff, it does a really good job of kind of describing the Force in the way that the different Jedi, kind of see and interpret and use and feel the Force, and that's kind of what this felt like to me, right? As she's using kind of the her song basically is her conduit of the Force, and I really like that. I really liked the animation style here is kind of like this like felt stop motion thing. I think it was probably all done on computer. I don't think it was actual stop motion, but it looked really cool. I thought, and yeah, just the story there between the father and the daughter, and kind of their relationship, and then her discovering kind of this gift that she had that she always kind of had suspected that she had, and what that was going to mean going forth. And I like the kind of visualization as she went into the cave and started to sing, and all of the red kyber crystals were turning white and kind of solidifying and stabilizing kind of this collapse that's happening. I thought it was really pretty great, and I loved it. There was that little bug that she pulled off of the thing that was super cute. I love that too. So um so yeah, so that is AU song. So that is all nine of those. We went through those pretty quick. Like I said, we didn't want to get into like the nitty-gritty of the what happened in the stories too much, trying to stay not spoiler free necessarily, but give you a chance to watch those and kind of form your own conclusions. But I thought that was pretty fun way to get through those and make sense of what we liked and kind of the themes of those. So now that we've finished, Joe, let's start with you. I want to hear kind of just your general thoughts on volume two. you don't have to necessarily compare it to volume one unless you want to. Sometimes I don't. I don't really like comparing things. Sometimes I do. I find it helpful. So I'm going to leave that up to you if you want to compare and contrast the two seasons that we got because they were very different, obviously. But what were kind of your overall thoughts, impressions on Volume Two? Anything from any of the episodes that we left out going through there that you wanted to make sure you mentioned? I'm gonna give you the stage, so to speak. So, what'd you think about Volume Two, Joe?
Last note on IU's song. One of my notes I've got written down is the Velveteen Rabbit does a Star Wars story.
Oh,
That's kind of what the art style reminded me of. But overall, I think Visions in general, and especially Visions Volume Two, really encapsulates what I like about the extended universe media, whether that be comic books or regular novels or video games, especially ones that don't deal with what are in uh, the Skywalker saga movies, so to say.
mhm.
Always a good message of hope, always a good message of family, always a good message of balance, warning against the dangers of going into too far extreme one way or the other. If you fall too far to the dark side, obviously the evilness that can come from that. But one thing a lot of people don't talk about is maybe too far towards the light. Now you get the dogmatic approach of the Jedi in the prequel era, and that whole detachment, maybe setting them a little too outside of the realm of compassion, in the name of keeping the peace. So it's a good cautionary tale either way, but at the heart of it, for me, it's always about a good story, and every episode of Visions has been a really good story.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. Cassia, what were your kind of general impressions, takeaways from the Volume Two stories, or anything you want to add about any of the episodes that we saw? Or
Yeah, I loved volume one of Visions, and I think two improves on it by kind of expanding the scope to studios all over the world. And I don't know, like I think like season two kind of evokes hope, you know, and you're probably one of like the most positive people, out there, Brian. Like, but for me, like the current Star Wars scape, like I haven't been as in love with it, like I really loved Andor and I really loved Reva's redemption arc uh in Kenobi, but like some of it I've just have kind of felt like a little disappointed, but I'm just kind of like when I was watching volume 2 of Visions, I was like kind of hope they make more of this, and um it kind of feels more like Star Wars, even if it isn't like quote unquote canon, and
Mhm.
kind of reminds me what Star Wars is about, like hope, wonder, awe, dark and light, and rather than it just kind of feeling like a little MCU-ish or like kind of like how do we make a show like so we can make some really cool products out of it, like, and maybe that's just like me kind of needing to be more positive, but I loved volume 2 because it reminds me like why I love Star Wars.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely tells you, all the things and all the reasons why you like Star Wars. These stories of hope, these stories of banding together and fighting for what you love, and that was definitely kind of the theme I thought for Star Wars Vision 2. It was a lot of family stories, a lot of joining together and rising up against the Empire, against your oppressors. I think conversely, and there are a couple that were kind of the other way, but it felt to me like Visions Volume One really focused a lot more on kind of the Force and being a Jedi and the Sith and stuff like that, whereas Visions Volume Two really seemed to be a little bit more kind of personal stories and, like I said, kind of banding together and rising up. That was kind of the overall tone, I guess, I got from Visions Volume 2. But I loved it. There wasn't one of these that I didn't absolutely love. Volume 1 I liked a lot. But looking back on it, there were a couple of standouts to me within Visions Volume 1, and the rest of them I thought were all pretty good. Visions Volume 2, like all of these really stand out to me. Like I would be up for watching any of these, short stories, again and again. And one of the things I really like about this is they feel like stories that would exist within the Star Wars world. We've talked about it a couple things, like the Skywalker Family at War book. We talked about how you could go into the Jedi archives and maybe pull that off of the library shelf. Like these seem like something that they would like screen in I don't know, like your Star Wars classroom or something, as this like Star Wars fairy tale or something that would exist like in that world. And I love kind of stuff like that and thoughts like that. So yeah, absolutely loved Volume 2. So hopefully everyone out there listening has had a chance to watch or kind of has their favorites of these stories, and feel free to reach out and let us know which one was your favorite for sure. So that is Star Wars Visions Volume 2, kind of in a nutshell. Looking into our crystal balls here, I have two questions. First, we're going to stick with Volume 2 here. So from Star Wars Visions Volume 1, we had the Ronin book, which followed up on the Duel. Are there any of these stories that either of you would like to see explored further in more stories, in a book, in a comic adaptation? I don't know if we're going to get that from any of these stories, but it's always fun to kind of hypothesize or which one of these stories really stuck out to you as one that you might like to see expanded upon. Joe, I know you're into these stories. You'd probably read a book about any of these if they came out. So which of these stories would you like to see, hypothetically speaking?
Oh, I have to pick just one.
You can pick nine, but I guess the one or two might be better. I don't know.
Um, I think Journey to the Dark Head would make an excellent book overall.
Yeah.
The Bandits of Golak feels like it could be like the intro to a book, like the book would pick up where that episode ends, and I'd like to see where that story goes. Um, and Owl Song, or Owl, I know I'm saying that wrong, but to see what she could accomplish with her voice, I think could make a very interesting story.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, any of kind of the Jedi like Padawan centric ones are definitely ripe for more storytelling because we want to know what happens, to these potential Jedi or Sith potentially in the case of Screecher's Reach would have in store. But what do you think, Cassie? Any of these you'd like to see expanded upon, or?
Definitely Journey to the Dark Head. I would love to see it as a full movie. Um, because I think the visuals are just so strong in it. I would love to see a full like movie or trilogy. And I know that's probably not going to happen, and it makes me sad, but
Yum.
that's what it would be cool to see. But I did have a friend, like I asked that we watched some of Visions season 2 together, and I said, "What would you want in season 3?" And he said a puppet show. And I'm like,
Okay.
interesting. Like I think if it were a live action puppet show, I think it might ruin the allure for me. But if it was animated, sure, go for it. And then I had another friend like say like I want more Star Wars horror, and I was like, wait until you see episode 2 of Visions Volume 2, then like by Cartoon Saloon. I mean Saloon. Oh my gosh. But
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. Definitely has some horror vibes there. Yeah, and that is a great gateway then into kind of the parting question that I was going to ask the both of you. What would you like to see for Visions Volume 3? They haven't announced Visions Volume 3. I would think that this will probably be an ongoing thing, but it's hard to say. But Joe, if season 3, what do you think? Is there any, I don't know, anything in particular you would like to see? I mean, we don't have to get into like specifics about studios and things like that, but just kind of generally speaking, I guess, is there anything you'd like to see or some ground that hasn't been covered yet between the two volumes?
Or Mandalorians. I love the Mandalorians.
Oh, okay.
That would be my biggest, that's really the only thing I haven't seen in Visions. There's a little bit of everything, but I would really like to see the Mandalorian culture explored a lot more.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, there would definitely be a lot of really good stories to tell there. Obviously, we have Mandalorian history, between Legends and, what we've got so far within like the Mandalorian, stuff like that. Definitely a long, lengthy timeline of stories to
Mhm.
tell and wars to wage and things like that. So yeah, that would be really cool. Everything so far seemed to kind of focus on some sort of force aspect or another, maybe, with the exception of like I Am Your Mother and what was that the Tatooine Rhapsody. But pretty much all of the rest of these have had some sort of force kind of component to them. So yeah, Mandalorians would be a really fun one to dig into, and you could make it, lighthearted. You could make it, like I said, kind of like this war type of a story, or just something in to dig into like the culture and civilization of Mandalorians. That would be pretty cool. So that would be a good idea. What do you think, Cassia? Any kind of ideas or unexplored territory to get into? Kreia Ice Capade, something like that. We could see Visions Volume 3. I don't know. What do you
Oh,
think?
don't tempt me with the Kreia ice capade or, the KOTOR 2 college textbook, you know, uh, or Max Rebo just, like having a musical journey,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
it's too tantalizing and I just lose it. But oh, I forgot to mention that one of my friends also said like a training day plot about Jedi would be cool. And I'm like, that would be
Oh.
cool. That would be
Mm-hmm.
interesting. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, I just think like getting different animated studios like from all over the world, just continue that trend, uh let people like follow their imagination where they will. And one story I would like is just like about shamans like in Star Wars, whether they're Jedi or Sith or kind of unaffiliated, like what would it kind of be to kind of be like a leader over people's well-being and like life and death and like kind of teaching the myths in a galaxy kind of influenced by the Force. Like
Mm-hmm.
that would be cool for me.
Yeah, it would be cool. That kind of immediately thinks makes me think of, um, kind of an Andor there, where you have the natives there of I forget the name of that planet where they're doing that credit heist kind of thing. But you have those people journeying back, and you have kind of the elder there leading the way. So yeah, stories like that would be really great and really, something really kind of rich and interesting to dig into. Between the, you know lots and lots of Star Wars planets and original inhabitants and things. That would be something that would be
Mhm.
really interesting. I don't specifically have an idea for a good story like the both of you, but I would really really like to see, and maybe this would be kind of meta in sort of a way, but I would really like Pixar to do a short for Visions,
Hmm.
Might be fun.
because Pixar is really good at doing shorts. They're very good at storytelling, and Pixar being a product of Lucasfilm that was bought by Disney, and then Lucasfilm fell under Disney, so it's kind of coming full circle. But I would really like to see a Pixar short from them. But I really liked kind of this season and how we went, around the world and got different flavors of things, which I think was one of my things that I really liked about Visions Volume 2, was just that everything felt so kind of different and representative of the cultures and societies that they were taking place in, and being created in, and the people working on them. I thought that was amazing, and I love to see stuff like that. And hopefully there's a bunch more animation studios out there that are hoping to do these and hopping on board and able to tell their stories. And hopefully, I haven't looked. Maybe either of you could tell me if they are. I know Visions Volume 1 had kind of behind the scenes creating, where they did like a little kind of mini documentary with each of the studios. Hopefully, something like that is on there for Visions Volume 2 or will be coming. I think that would be really cool. I know we had kind of the panel where each of the studios talked, but I would like a little documentary to kind of watch. I think that would be really awesome. So yeah, that is Visions Volume 2. Like I said, we kind of went through those pretty quick, but it was really great, and we definitely wanted to talk about it, and we definitely wanted to have Joe on to talk about it because he loves stories as much as we do. So Joe, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun.
Awesome. Yeah, no, the pleasure was all ours. I guarantee it. If anyone out there listening, if they want to talk to you online, people wanted to chat with you more about visions and stories, where can they do that?
I think most of my handles are at JW Bookworm, and it's Bookworm with a Y, like the dragon.
Okay. Awesome. Very nice. Yeah. Definitely get on there and check that out and talk to Joe because like I said, Joe knows stories and we love to chat about them here on the Old Republic podcast. So Cassia, that is Visions Volume 2. What did you think? Did you get to see them enough yet? Are you going to watch them again? What do you think?
It kind of influenced me to want to see parts of Visions Volume 1 again, and maybe I'll watch some of the ones I haven't watched multiple times, Visions Volume 2. So it's all good content, and yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you out there for listening. Let us know what your favorite volume of Visions, what your favorite Visions episode was, who your favorite studio was or story, anything like that, or if you have ideas for Visions Volume 3, let us know. We'd love to chat with you about it. And thanks for tuning into this one, and may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.